Hello out there, casual fanatics. Jeremy here, and this is another casual mode vlog. Getting one out a day ahead of the new video, which, by the way, 3D6 random number 2 coming out this Wednesday. Yeah, baby. I you're probably going to notice that in that video my hair will look a lot shaggier than it does right now. Of course, I got a little bit of bedhead going on right now, but I actually had gotten my hair cut yesterday, and I recorded the 3D6 random before I got my hair cut. So, continuity error, oh no! But actually, one of the major reasons why I wanted to bring this to y'all's attention is because I recently did a collaboration with my little brother David over on his channel, Ace of Hearts Gaming. We did Pokemon Spotlight on my personal favorite Pokemon, Eevee. Why Eevee? Take a wild freaking guess. Anyway. Yeah, I'm going to put the link to it down in the subscription, and while you're over there watching that, if you are not already subscribed to Ace of Hearts Gaming, please go and do so. He is running headlong towards 1,000 subscribers, and I want to help him get it there. So, please, like I said, please, while you're over there, please subscribe, become a part of the Ace Nation. And if you're watching this and you're not already, become a casual fanatic too. Subscribe to us as well. Blatant chilling. The major reason though I wanted to do this video is because of the news that came out yesterday. And that is of the passing of David Bowie. Now, of course, musically, David Bowie was absolutely fantastic. Kept reinventing himself, never shied away from trying new things, and pretty much made music on his own terms. Really changed the way people looked at rock and at glam rock. Kind of made it a little more intelligent. And it seems like though every time that someone famous dies, terrible things about them come out. And I can't say that they're not always unwarranted, but it's like sometimes there has to be, someone's got to harsh the buzz, all this outpouring of love and emotion for someone, and there's always someone out there who's just got to kind of jab a knife into it. Sometimes it's correct and warranted, and sometimes it isn't. I can't really say most of the time. From what I've seen, I've seen reports, and I would like to stress that these I cannot substantiate that David Bowie had raped people in the past. And seeing those reports, it kind of took me back a little bit to around the time that Chris Benoit died. For those of you who aren't familiar with the situation, for those of you who don't watch wrestling and don't know what happened there, what happened was, well, I have to kind of go back with the story a little bit, because the story of what happened to Chris Benoit starts a year before the actual event that I'm thinking of. It started with the death of Eddie Guerrero. There were two people who were more broken up than anyone else about the passing of Eddie Guerrero. And again, Eddie Guerrero was kind of a person who he had had some demons in his past. He had had some drug issues. And while he was clean and sober, those drug issues did eventually end up causing his death. because of an enlarged heart. Two people were more broken up about that than anyone else. And while a great deal of the people working in the WWE were devastated, the two most affected by it were his two closest friends, Rey Mysterio and Chris Benoit. Especially Chris Benoit, because Chris Benoit is probably the hardest hit by it, just judging by the reactions as I remember. And I mean, yeah, Rey Mysterio was torn up as well, but Chris Benoit, I mean, at least Rey was somewhat coherent when he was able to speak. Chris Benoit was hardly get any words in. And I do have a feeling that sparked a depression that was exacerbated by constant concussions. And that depression ultimately led him to killing his wife and his son, his autistic son, if I remember correctly at least. And then himself. And that was an earth-shaking, I mean, it was an earth-shaking thing to hear all of a sudden that, you know, that he had done that. Especially to those of us who, like me, kind of idolized the guy, really. I mean, he had appeared to have a good family life. He was great in the ring, and he kept going and persevered and succeeded even when people were saying that he didn't deserve to be there. But yeah, we found that out, and it was just like, admittedly, he was up on a pedestal, and that pedestal had just gotten knocked right out from under him, right at the very last moment. And the reason why I bring this up is because, again, when that news started going around that David Bowie had allegedly raped people in the past, I have not yet seen any confirmation of this, but so I'm not entirely certain how true it is. If it is, it's terrible, of course. It really struck of that same chord, you know. And this time, well, back then, you know, I had a hard time with it. I had a hard time trying to marry Chris Benoit's end with his legacy. Ultimately, I had to come to the decision within myself that while I could no longer respect him as a man, I could respect Chris Benoit as a wrestler and still enjoy everything that he had done. It's hard to watch it nowadays, yes, knowing what Chris Benoit did, but it doesn't change the fact that exists. It doesn't change the fact that he set the stage for a lot of popular wrestlers from today, that he set the stage for the people like Daniel Bryan, like Chris Benoit, CM Punk, you know, for Sami Zayn. He set the stage for smaller guys who can wrestle fantastically well. Between him and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho and Edge and Christian, you know, smaller guys who are smaller than the usual big behemoths that you think of when you think of WWE, that are, you know, not the John Cena, not even the John Cena size, let alone the Roman Reigns size. He helped set the stage and make it possible for people of that size to succeed. And yes, you can even go back a little farther and say it was also mostly due to the efforts of Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and, you know, Kurt Hennig, and that is true. It is very true. But Chris Benoit's place cannot be denied, and it burns me that WWE seems to be content with trying to erase him from history. I mean, they show his matches on WWE Network, but there's no little marker there. It never occurred to them that maybe the artist and the art are not always tied together. And you know, it got me to thinking, you know, think of all the dumb shit that you've done. I know I've done a fair amount of dumb shit. I've ruined friendships from things that I've said or things that I've done, and I am not proud of them by any means. Now, you know, some of the things that you've done that have been really, really stupid kind of fly under the radar. Because you're not famous. Unless, for some reason, you are a famous person who's watching this. Which I highly doubt is the case. If you're not famous, a lot of that stuff can fly under the radar. Unless you do, like, something supremely dumb, it flies under the radar. When you're famous, you're much more scrutinized. Because it seems like people have this weird tendency to not treat famous people as if they were famous people. And, you know, it doesn't matter how famous you are. You're still human. And humans do dumb shit. Some do dumber shit than others. You know, some people murder others and themselves. Some people rape people. They are, in my mind, they're really kind of equally horrible, just in different ways. And yet, somehow, at the same time, terrible people can still do wonderful things, can still do great things. It's almost like humans are complex organisms that are capable of so many things. I know, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? So, when it comes down to, you know, trying to define the legacy of someone who has made huge mistakes, like alleged rape or like murder-suicide, you kind of have to separate their personal life from their professional life, because people don't act necessarily the same way professionally that they would in person. There are very few industries where that can be said. I mean, look at me. If for some reason you manage to get me on the phones helping you out with your iOS device, I am not going to sound anything like I am sounding right now. For one thing, you're going to hear a lot less cursing. But yeah, you're not going to hear me act the same way because I'm in professional mode. I'm doing my job. I'm there to help you. And yet you talk to me in real life and I'm much more casual. Kind of like how I am most of the time on this channel, especially in these vlogs. Because, once I'm off the clock, I'm not I'm not really representing Apple anymore. I'm representing me. So and yeah, it's like I said, really darkness darkness and light can exist within the same person. You can do the dumbest shit one day and then go out and do something fantastic the next. Those are not mutually exclusive. For whatever reason, even people who do terrible stuff still have the capacity for good in them. Still have the capacity to do fantastic things. It's just a matter of knowing where your talents lie and using them. So, really, the bottom line is this, and yeah, the bottom line is this. My advice to you, not just in the wake of this passing, but in the wake of all future celebrity passings, because stuff like this will come out for anyone, be it David Bowie, Chris Benoit, Michael Jackson got it when he died. When he died, I would say somewhat deservingly, because let's face it, some of the stuff that he did with kids did come off as rather creepy. Um, OJ, when OJ Simpson dies, some people will remember him for his football playing career. Other people will remember him going batshit insane afterwards. I'm probably in that latter camp. But just remember that art and the artist, that art is the artist, but the artist is not the art. Art proceeds from a person, but that person is not solely defined by what they create. There are many things that make up a person. Some of them are fantastic, some of them are horrible. And there's no real way to separate them except to realize that the act of creation is not a moral process. It is, in fact, amoral. It is completely without regards to morality. It does not care if you're a good person. Good people are no more inspired than bad people. Bad people are no less inspired than good people. But if the art itself is great, celebrate the art. You can do that and not necessarily idolize an artist. Because, let's face it. We're all human. We all let people down sometimes. And would you want someone to demonize everything that you've done just because you made fuck-ups in your life? No matter how big those fuck-ups are? No. You'd still want those things to have value. You'd still want to have something left behind in this world that people can latch on to, even if they don't like you. That's all we can ask for in this world. And it is my hope that even that if the allegations about David Bowie do end up becoming proven true, and me being a knowledge-based guy, if it is, I want to know. If it does end up being true, and if it is true, then it is horrible. We still have the music. Because David Bowie's music is not entirely defined by David Jones. Keep it casual, y'all.